So last week I put Bradley Barcola to Liverpool at 45%, and I told you on camera exactly what would change my mind. I said, watch whether PSG go out and buy a replacement winger, because a selling club that lines up a successor has already decided to sell, or are making it at least a possibility to sell. And so this past Saturday, PSG signed Mika Godts from Ajax for 55 million euros. Then they left Bradley Barcola out of the squad against Lens. So the number moves. 45 becomes 75. And look, I could have quietly said 75 and hope nobody remembered. Loads of channels do exactly that. The whole point of this show is that I write it down before, and then I live with it. So guys, welcome back to my transfer show, Transfer Sense, maybe we'll call it, that tries to be more than just rumors, looking at dynamics and how they affect the moves that go through or collapse, analyzing sources and finding common threads or themes in each episode. Right to the scoreboard. I'm sorry, it's very bright out here, hence the sunglasses. So 3 of my calls were settled this week. Rodri to Barcelona, I had 55%. That one has happened. Happened faster than I thought. And I'd seen that some of you guys in the comments were disagreeing and saying that you were far more sure that this would happen. So kudos to you guys. Your feeling was correct. Ferran Torres to PSG, 75%. That one happened, but I think everyone saw that as pretty much a guarantee, right? Endrick to Roma on loan, 25%, meaning I said no, didn't happen. I'm basically considering that one as closed. He could yet move, as I said, but I'm going to say that he stays at Real Madrid for this window, maybe a loan in January. So right now, if we do consider Endrick as closed, then we are 3 from 3 from the transfers that are closed. Rodrigo Mora hasn't yet been closed as of the time of recording. So when you consider the percentages I gave and how far off I was, we're going with a Brier score here, which just measures the accuracy of the probability I was given. So a score of 0 would be perfect. That's bang on. I have a running score of 0.109. If I was to be boring and just guess 50% on everything forever, I would land on a score of 0.25. So 0.109 on the Brier score. I mean, it's not impressive after 3 calls. Ask me again at the end of the window. All right, let's move on to the Rumour Mill. So Emi Martinez, guys, second summer running where it looked like he's out the door at Villa, and then things change. Villa have done this in kind of the wrong order in some ways, but it's not completely their fault, and it wouldn't be a huge loss to not be able to sell him. But Juventus bid 10 million for Dibu Martinez. Villa wanted 15. That's a normal gap, nothing to read into. And then Villa agreed 30 million pounds with Parma for Zion Suzuki, who days ago it looked like he was going to PSG. That's not really a backup signing when you pay that amount. That's sort of replacement caliber spending. And they did it. And so Juventus walked away, because the moment you spend 30 million on a replacement, every buyer in Europe knows you have to sell the original. You announced it with your spending, with your checkbook, really. So Juventus got Vicario from Spurs instead on loan. 10 million euro option to make it permanent, about exactly what they were offering for Martinez for a guy who's 4 years younger. Same outlay, spread over a year, and if it doesn't work, you can send him back. You're not stuck with that contract. So let's go through the 5-factor authentication here really quickly. Sources, Sky on both ends, and 6 up front plus add-ons against a 15 ask is too specific to invent. Leak direction mostly came out of Turin. Fitness concerns the same day as a bid gets knocked back is a club explaining itself to its own fans. So money, squad logic, and timing all point the same way. 33, contracted to 2029. Suzuki's a successor, not cover. 2 weeks left. So Dibu leaving, I'll give that 45%. I don't know where, but it's real but stuck. What moves it is if a club with European football and a real goalkeeper problem bid around 12 million or so. If nothing lands by the weekend, I'm dropping it to 25, and Dibu starts the season as the most expensive substitute goalkeeper in England, or the best substitute goalkeeper in England. Staying at Villa Park, and this is my favorite story in the world right now, because everyone's got the headline going, nobody has the reason. So headline is Ollie Watkins has agreed to join Saudi. He's agreed personal terms with Al Hilal. Villa are talking with them. So why isn't it done? It's not the fee, it's not Watkins. He's said yes, it is Karim Benzema. Al Hilal want Watkins to replace him. Benzema doesn't want to go anywhere. He has a contract to 2027, and he's turned down everything they've put in front of him in order to sever their ties. He wants the final year paid out, all of it, right? So why do they want him out of here when they did so much to get him last season? Saudi clubs run a hard cap 8 foreign players. Benzema is a guy they'd like to move on. He's occupying a slot. Until it's empty, Al Hilal can't register the striker they've agreed terms with, Watkins. And we've seen this movie before. Darwin got dropped from the league for the exact same reason at Al Hilal when Benzema arrived. One player not signing a piece of paper is holding up the whole transfer. Now, I'll be careful here. There's reporting out of Saudi Arabia, regional reporting, no tier 1 sources that I'm personally familiar with, that some of what Benzema is owed doesn't come from the club. It comes through state bodies. And the wrinkle is he's signed in January. In April, PIF sold 70% of Al Hilal to Prince Al Walid's Kingdom Holding Company. So they now hold about 5%, I believe the PIF does. Now, no, I'm not alleging anything dodgy. Don't get it twisted. Nothing's breaking a rule. It's just the complexity of it. That contract was written under one owner and it's sitting on a different owner's books. The player is refusing to leave. Isn't really a football problem. It's kind of an administrative one, and administrative problems don't get prioritized when everyone involved has near endless money, right? So I give this one 40%. The condition to make it higher, any credible report that Benzema has agreed a settlement number. The day that lands, this goes to 75% because everything else is already in place. Right, remember Jadon Sancho, free agent since June? Being a free agent is supposed to be the strongest position in football, no fee, so clubs can pay you more, right? Only true if the market really wants you at the number you want. Look at Villa. He played for them, won a European trophy with them, no risk, no adaptation for them. They know exactly what they're getting out of Sancho, and they pulled out over wages. He faded when it got serious, man of the match in the round of 16, then a 9-minute sub in the semifinal, one touch, but still, they got a proper look, right? And when the club that's already lived with you decides the juice isn't worth the squeeze, it ain't looking good, bruv. Source tier is weak, I'll say it. Agreements in principle with clubs in Europe, Saudi, and the Middle East, and not one has been named. So to me, that's an agent building or trying to build a market for their client. The only concrete thing is from Al Rayyan in Qatar. Dortmund is the football answer here, where he was best, league suits him, but Dortmund's wage structure and Jadon Sancho's wages, what he's asking for, don't really fit. So the choice is big pay cut and be a good player again, or take the millions and millions and millions in a Gulf state. I think he takes the money personally. 65% he signs outside of Europe's top 5 by the end of September. I lean Gulf states, but Turkey could be an answer here. You know, we could see him in Turkey. And I don't say that with any pleasure because, I mean, going to Turkey is fine, but one of the most exciting footballers on the planet at 20, and he's dropped and dropped and dropped. That's what I don't say with any pleasure. He's still only 26 years old. All right, out of the rumor mill, on the brink transfers. Different question here. Not will it happen necessarily, it's what is the one thing blocking it. So for Barcola, the blocker is about 10 million euros or so, and Nasser Al-Khelaifi. Liverpool are at 135. Apparently PSG want 145, maybe down to 125. I mean, last week my argument for 45% that he goes was that PSG have no reason to sell, no replacement, no money problems, 2 years left on the contract, but 7 days later they've spent 55 million on a 21-year-old winger and dropped Barcola from a matchday squad. You don't spend 55 million on a winger you don't necessarily need or want, and you don't drop 140 million asset just for nothing, right? Drop him from the squad for nothing. So was 45% too low? Yes. I don't think my reasoning was horrible, just that PSG needed a forcing function, and that was correct, I guess. It was too low though because I totally underrated how fast they move once they've decided on something. Once they've decided on a signing, I shouldn't have underestimated how easy it is for them to seduce players and the willingness to receive a chunk of cash like that, right? So this one moves up to 75% for me. If Liverpool's next bid isn't comfortably past 135 or PSG restate 150 now that Godts is in, it stalls back to 55%. Ayu Buadi. The blocker is nothing structural. They just haven't landed on a number as of the time of recording this. And that's kind of the story, really. The reported fees are 70 million at one end, 135 million at the other end. It's the same 18-year-old player. It's the same week. I don't know if it's journalists getting briefed different things or a negotiation being run through the press by both sides at once, everyone printing whichever number they got handed, right? My read is nearer to 100 because the top figure only shows up in outlets with no Lille beat and no City beat. But the fee barely matters at this point. City are about to spend on 2 central midfielders after moving on Rodri. One of them is 18 and the other is Elliot Anderson at 116 million, who's never played outside of England. Both of them are supremely talented, but will experience be an issue for City? I mean, it wasn't really with Boadi in Morocco's midfield, but this is different. Maresca has been in the job 5 minutes and he's rebuilding the most important position on the pitch out of the 2 lads who've never done it at this level. So there could be some struggles early, but with time, I really think that this could become an absolutely unbeatable midfield. 85% from me, the bottom end of the inks drying tier, but it's going to happen. Okay, Diego Moreira from Strasbourg to AC Milan. The blocker, a medical and a signature. Medicals booked for tomorrow. Milan are paying between 45 and 55 million. Fabrizio Romano has it at 50 plus bonuses. Here's what I want you to notice. Moreira joined Strasbourg from Chelsea 2 summers ago for 8.5 million. And Chelsea and Strasbourg have the same owners, Bluco, as I mentioned. 8.5 to 50 in 24 months. And for most of it, the buying club and the selling club were the same people. Strasbourg didn't develop a 50 million euro player by accident. They were handed a Chelsea kind of a youngster, I guess, at an internal price and sell him at a market price, which raises a decent question. If you can buy from yourself at 8.5 and then sell to the world at 50, what was the 8.5? What was that a measure of? 95%. And remember who was on the phone for this one. We're coming back to him. Remember the phone. All right, let's get to some done deals that are worthy of speaking about. 30 million euros for Jet Spence. Serie A champions, Inter Milan take him. Now, in May, Jet Spence was a squad player whose own club had just handed Pedro Porro a new contract and signed Andy Robertson. He was looking at about, maybe limited time. We'll see. Then he played all 8 of England's matches at the World Cup. Tuchel saw something in him. Nothing about the player changed that much in those 8 games. What changed is that a ton of scouting departments watched him for a month. Same time, same conditions, best opposition available at the world stage, and the market corrected. That's what a tournament actually is. It isn't a competition. It's a repricing event, man. You got to get those numbers up on players who maybe wouldn't have had them up in the past. Sometimes don't deserve to have those numbers inflated. In July, Inter sold Denzel Dumfries to Real Madrid because Madrid triggered a 20 million release clause. In August, they replaced the same position for 30. 10 weeks, 10 million worse off, plus 5 years of wages, but a pretty good looking player. Everyone said Inter got mugged by Real Madrid. They didn't. They got mugged by a clause they wrote themselves. Unfortunate for them. But Jet Spence looked good in the World Cup. He's very physical when he's actually on the ball. Doesn't look as good, but I think that he could be good at Inter. I think that he'll be just fine. Juventus paid Fiorentina around 80 million for Vlahovic in January 2022. He has just walked out of the building 4-0 at 26 years old. Not 32, 26, 68 goals in 168 games, and they let it run all the way down to 0. One of the most expensive 4 years any club in Europe has had this decade, and it made no noise because nobody writes about a departure with no fee on it. But the destination is the real signal, right? Besiktas, 3 years, 7.5 million a season. And this is the second time I've said this. Salah to Trabzonspor, Nunez to Trabzonspor, Vlahovic to Besiktas. The Super League has quietly become the place where the contracts Europe can't afford and Saudi Arabia doesn't really want anymore keep on existing. 7.5 million a year is a wage no Premier League club puts on a 26-year-old with that injury record. Besiktas will pay it happily because they aren't buying an asset, they're buying attention, and attention is about the only thing in football that's gotten cheaper in a way. Well, it depends how you want to look at it. 7.5 million for some attention per year is quite a bit. We'll see if they can combat Galatasaray in the Super League. So Rodri, I had this at 55%. It's done. Ornstein has the package at 76.5 million euros, 60 fixed, 11 plus bonuses, etc., that they're expected to hit. And I want to be honest about why 55 and not higher. Sky were reporting that the talks were inactive the same week other outlets had Barcelona leading. It's the second time that's happened this summer on this exact story. The lesson, I mean, just wait for Ornstein. Once he spoke a few days after my episode had come out, it was essentially a done deal. But look what actually happened here. City sold a 30-year-old on an expiring contract for $76.5 million. And they're about to spend more than that on an 18-year-old to replace him. That is the most Man City thing that has happened. And I mean, it works for them. Barcelona have paid 76.5 for a 30-year-old who is 12 months from being free. That's a price that you only pay when you're convinced that you're one player away from, winning the Champions League, I guess. That's sort of the final frontier, and that you see this season as the year to do it. Okay, last thing, and this is why I told you to remember the phone. Remember that phone call, because this is where we tie some things together here. Watch AC Milan's window. In, Gonzalo Ramos from PSG, club record, over 70 million. Mario Gila, 30. Morera, medical tomorrow, apparently about 50. Rafael Leão wants to leave. Milan dropped their price. Leeds bid 55 or something. He's kind of stuck at the moment. Now, Ramos is a Jorge Mendes client. Gestafoot. Morera, Romano says Mendes led it. Milan were linked with Antonio Silva. He ultimately went to Bournemouth, but Jorge Mendes. Leão's exit, Mendes is personally handling it. Italian reporting has gone as far as calling him effectively Milan's sporting director this summer. His tentacles are all over everything. So as a question, because that's genuinely what it is, when the same representative is on the biggest thing a club buys and the biggest thing it sells in the same window, who is that window optimized for? Uncle George. Uncle George always wins. The house always wins, man. This is modern football, right? But when you're paying premium at both ends of the relationship here, the relationship is the thing you should be sort of pricing, right? So watch the Leão fee. Watch the other names that come in and who represents them, as Mendes' influence is growing in Milan. Mr. Cardinale seems to love Uncle George. Okay, guys, so 6 numbers this week. Martinez, 45. Watkins, 40. Sancho, 65. Barcola, 75. Boadi, 85. Morera, 95. The one I'm least comfortable with is Sancho at 65 and Watkins, I guess maybe Watkins at only 40. Weakest sourcing for Sancho, but Al Hilal's likelihood of saying, screw it, let's sign him and figure Benzema out later is probably the most likely thing to happen and to make me look dumb in next week. But anyway, put your percentages in the comments before next week's episode. All right, guys, that's it from me. As always, I thank you for watching. It's nice to be producing for you once again, and I'll see you in another video soon. Later.